Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. I'm Brian Winnekins on this Friday morning as we wrap up our spotlight of the Brenner family farm just outside of Durant. It's been a fascinating conversation all this week about how Tom basically started dairying and basically restarted his grandparents' farm. And it's a pretty great story. And this morning, we're going to talk about, again, I'm looking outside. It's a very, very beautiful farm. And I can just imagine what it's like here in fall. And you have some very nice hills with some very nice wooded areas, non-tillable, as I guess is what they call it in the industry. But that means you have wildlife. And I see those cornfields pretty close to the woods. So what are some of the things you'd like to try to do to protect the wildlife and to coexist? Because obviously in that woods there's probably some deer, and those deer are like, the corn buffet is going to be ready soon. So how do you coexist?
Well, my dad has always been doing this at the farm, so all of these contour strips, they can help out in that respect as far as damage, because you never have a whole sea of corn. So the edge effect on fields can bring your yields up because you have more sun hitting those crops. And sometimes you can see the deer a little earlier while you're hunting when there's not such a sea of just one particular crop out there. So some of the guys that come to hunt have some pretty good odds at getting a deer.
Now, I did not know that so really in some respects that the contour strips prevents runoff, which means you protect the soil, which means you have to use less nitrogen, which hopefully will mean protecting the groundwater. But at the same time, that means you're getting a better yield. You're coexisting with the deer.
Yeah. Deer are a problem, and they're a great thing for a farmer all at the same time. And every farmer's in the same boat. We're constantly having food plots for deer. There's just no way around that. So all the food plots that the hunters put out there, we appreciate, but the deer around here are getting the vast majority of their feed, out our backyard. So hunting is a great thing, and my dad has been a sportsman his whole life, and he grew up, with a grandpa that my grandpa Bun never hunted, but my dad picked that up, and he, brought all of us boys out hunting, and there's a pretty great group of guys that come to the farm. So being a sportsman his whole life, he used to try and raise pheasants, and so he would release the pheasants after we grew them. And my dad's always been kind of conservation minded, and some of those ideas have paid dividends, and some of them, well, it's trial and error. But I don't know if he ever raised the pheasant population around Durant, but they sure tried.
And you and I talked about, the clover, and I had mentioned off air after we had talked about the clover, but the grouse really like it. And you've seen a few grouse out here. Now, the grouse population in southern Wisconsin isn't really like it used to be, but wow, have you ever heard them drumming early in the morning, especially in the springtime, or have you seen a few more maybe than in years past?
Well, it seems like, you spook a few more things up, but maybe that's all in my mind too. I can't say that there's a really high percentage raise in any population for the game birds, but it does seem like they're scaring you when you're walking through a few things more than they used to be.
Oh yeah, I know that in hunting grouse, when it's always that you walk by and they're behind the tree, and that's when they fly, and you're like, oh my word, totally understand what you're saying. But that's also what makes life on the farm special for your family, is coexisting and being able to see those deer. Yeah, I know you don't want them to eat all of the corn, but to see them, or to see the game birds, or to see that wildlife out there that's in that beautiful, beautiful woods that is just outside the window.
Yeah, and I think you learn to coexist with them a little more. Where us being so close to town, a lot of our neighbors, they might have names for all those deer. So you appreciate them when you see them out there, and I think there's more appreciation going on when you see a few deer out in the field than, oh, they're eating again. But if we keep the population under control with all the hunters that come to Wisconsin, hopefully it never becomes too bad of a problem.
Do you do anything with the woods? Do you try to potentially harvest some of the trees if need be? I know some farmers, if they have a whole big grove of maples, they'll do the maple syrup thing. I know that, here in Pepin County. But do you try to do anything to keep the forest healthy? Do you talk with the DNR forester and say, hey, the do's and don'ts? Or do you just kind of let Mother Nature take care of that?
Well, that's my dad's department. So he takes care of all that stuff, and he works with a forestry program. So if and when it's time to cut, they work through their plan however they do it. And, John Dreyer comes out to the farm every so often and takes a few trees. So I don't really have a lot to do with the forestry department of the farm.
That's great that your dad wants to keep that, though, and having that forest stay healthy. Obviously, he sounds like my dad, because that was what my dad did with his land up in Oneida County growing up. Oh yeah, he always had the foresters and the paper mill companies. Okay, what can we do with this part and that part, and what trees should we take, what trees need to stay, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of nice that your dad really wants to do that.
Yeah, Dad's definitely an appreciator of nature. He rides a lot of horse, and he's been in a lot of backcountry, and I think that's something that's always on his mind is conservation.
Does he have some pretty nice trails back there that he might take the horse on, or is that maybe too steep?
I think they could go anywhere. I tend to stay away from the horses, but it doesn't sound like they shy away from too many trails.
You're like me. I tend to shy away from the horses too, for a whole bunch of reasons. A quarter horse is still really, really big, and that fall is really, really far to fall off. Well, it's a beautiful farm you have here, and I know that this is something that's special to you. It's special to your family, and you have to be so proud. And I know your family, your dad's got to be so proud of you, that what you've done with this, and to be able to raise your family here.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I appreciate the previous generations, because none of that work was easy for them. I mean, I'm not using a pitchfork or an axe or a maul every single day.
Or milking by hand.
Exactly. So, things are difficult in their own way, I guess, for the new generation of farming, but it's certainly not as much sweat equity as previous generations have gone through by a mile.
Again, Tom Brenner with Brenner Family Farm just outside of Durand, as we've been spotlighting his beautiful, beautiful farm all this weekend. Again, thank you to Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin. We'll do it again next month. You're listening